feet long. It was the longest wharf in the New World. And it was from there on March 17, 1776, that you had 7,800 British troops peacefully evacuate Boston for the final time. Now, every March 17th is a city holiday here in Boston called Evacuation Day. So if you're ever here in the city and you see a lot of people celebrating on the 17th, it's not just because it's St. Patrick's Day, but it's also because of Evacuation Day. Now, I had my wedding reception at the Wharf Marriott Hotel, and the reason is my wife wanted to get married there, or have our reception there, because of what you see beside you on your right. This is the Christopher Columbus Park, dating back to 1976. And if you look in the middle, that black wrought iron fence, in there is the Rose Kennedy Rose Garden, named after the matriarch of the Kennedy family, mother of JFK, Bobby, and Teddy. Now, my wife wanted to have a wedding photo taken in that rose garden. Now, Rose Kennedy is from this section of Boston that we're now entering, which is the North End. Now, she lived to the age of 104.
Wow.
She was both baptized and eulogized in this neighborhood at St. Stephen's Church. So, my wife wanted to have wedding photos over here on the right. Well, when we decided to get married there, they told us that the park was getting renovated and it would be ready 3 weeks before we got married. 2 days before, she gets the call that it's not quite done. So she's devastated. But then it doesn't matter because it winds up pouring on our wedding day, and all of our photos are taken inside the hotel in a random room. Now, it's been 22 years since. Every year except for one, it's rained on our anniversary. And our anniversary is this upcoming Sunday, and rain's in the forecast. So, I guess it's good luck. Now, this neighborhood that we're coming into now is the North End. Now, the North End is the oldest continuously lived in neighborhood in Boston, dating back to 1630, when this land was purchased by the Puritans from Reverend William Blackstone. Now, this neighborhood has long been lived in by different immigrant groups when they first moved to Boston. Now, the group is most commonly associated with is the Italian American. Now, as of 1920, 90% of the North End was of Italian descent. By 2020, that number is down to 40%, but it's still the largest nationality here in this neighborhood. Now, if you're interested, you're going to find over 100 Italian eateries and bakeries here in this neighborhood. Now, personally, I am a sweet tooth, and if you do, I recommend checking out Ova. Ova is a bakery open 24 hours a day. So, early tomorrow morning, you want a cannoli at like 2:30, it's the place to go. But it doesn't matter if you go there at 8 in the morning, 8 at night, or 2:30 in the morning. Whatever time you go, food's fantastic. And personally, I recommend the pistachio cannoli, which is very good.
Where is it?
It's going to be right off of Hanover Street. It's going to be right over on Salem. So it's basically right in the heart of the North End. So, yeah, and the nice thing is, too, if you really want, you can basically do like a taste of the North End. And you can go and you can hit like a bunch of different bakeries and try different things if you like. There's so many great restaurants. For food, you might go for a meal. The place my wife and I like to go is Panza. Yeah, P-A-N-Z-A, and that's located right on Hanover Street. Now, the most famous person from the North End is Paul Revere. Now, Paul Revere, he moved here to the North End in 1770 with his wife Sarah and their 8 children. Now, the house they moved into was built in 1680, so the house was already 90 years old when they moved in. Now, that house still stands, and it's the oldest house in Boston proper. Now, with Paul Revere, when he moved here, shortly after, his wife Sarah passed away. So now he was a grieving widower, heartbroken that his wife had died. And he waits almost 5 months before remarrying. And this time he marries Rachel. And with Rachel, they have 8 more kids.
Oh, wow.
So during a 29-year span of time, Paul Revere fathered 16 children.
Wow.
Now, the reason that he got married so soon wasn't because, he wasn't heartbroken about the loss of his wife, but it was more for practical reasons. Because he's a widower with 8 kids, so he's going to get out there and provide for his family. And provide is what he did. He held many jobs, including he was a courier, a bell caster, a bell ringer, coppersmith, silversmith, and a dentist.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I wouldn't want him rooting around in my mouth either. But either way, he did all these different jobs. But the one he's most well known for is being a courier. On April 18, 1775, he had his most famous ride. Now, if you look over on your left, you're going to see Rocco's. And right on the corner of Henchman Street there. So if you look up Henchman Street on the left, you're going to see the steeple of the Old North Church up at the top of the hill.
Is that where the lanterns were?
So when you have the famous saying, one if by land, two if by sea, it was from that steeple that 2 lanterns were hanging. So that way they knew that the Redcoats were leaving Boston by sea. Now the reason why it was so important to let people know what was going on is because Boston was blockaded by the Redcoats. So right over on your right side here is the Boston Harbor. Out in the middle of the harbor, there was the British man of war Somerset. Now, they were anchored out there and preventing Bostonians from leaving the city. Now, on the other side of the harbor, that's going to be Charlestown. And so they wanted that people to be able to see the lanterns across the water in case Paul Revere and other couriers were unable to get out and make it over to go up to Lexington and Concord. So that's over in Charlestown. Now, up in Lexington, that's where you had some living leaders, Sam Adams and John Hancock, that were in hiding. In Concord is where they were storing munitions. So that's why the Redcoats were going up there to capture all of that. So Paul Revere was able to get a few friends on a rowboat. They sneaked him across the harbor by muffling the oars. They got over there. They got past the Somerset, went over, and he was able to borrow a horse from his friend Deacon Larkin. The horse was a brown beauty. He began his ride up towards Lexington. Meanwhile, Boston, which was still just a small peninsula at the time, on the southernmost tip was the Boston Neck, which was the only way by land to get out of the city. So you had a guy by the name of William Dawes who left Boston by the southern tip there, from the Boston Neck. He rode a horse, and he had a much further ride than Paul Revere, but the 2 of them began to ride up towards Lexington. Alright, here we are. This is our next stop. This is stop number 2 over here in the North End. Now, just so you know, if you'd like to visit the North End, it is just as short of a walk from stop 1 as it is from stop 2. The only difference is stop 1, it's all a flat walk, whereas stop 2, you've got to go up a little bit of an incline. Alright. Don't see anyone joining us, so we're going to take off, leaving stop number 2. Now, as I mentioned, William Dawes was able to get out of Boston from the south. Paul Revere gets over to Charlestown, he gets on the horse, and he begins to ride northwest from over here. Now, the 2 guys make the ride over towards Lexington. And you can still hear them riding today. So they are able to get over to Lexington, and thankfully when they get there, and warn Hancock and Adams, before they leave, they meet up with another guy by the name of Dr. Samuel Prescott. He was a physician in the area. He was just coming home from being out with his girlfriend for the night, and thankfully he decided to join them, because the 3 men no sooner left Lexington than they were stopped by the Redcoats. Now, Prescott, knowing the area, was able to sneak off and make his way using back roads and woods to get to Concord. Paul Revere and William Dawes never completed the ride. Now, Paul Revere, everyone knows about him for that ride, and that's because he had a much better publicist, and he had a guy by the name of Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, the poet who wrote The Midnight Ride of Paul Revere. So listen, my children, and you shall hear of the Midnight Ride of Paul Revere. And that was written decades after Paul Revere had died. Now this bridge that we're just heading over now, this is the Bill Russell Bridge. It's named after Bill Russell, the former Boston Celtic great and NBA Hall of Famer. Right beside you on your right, you're going to see this red stripe on the sidewalk. Whenever you see that in Boston, whether it be a red stripe painted or a stripe of brick, that means that it's the Freedom Trail. Now the Freedom Trail is a 2.5-mile free walking tour of 16 historic sites in Boston, all with connections to the American Revolution. The first stop is over at Boston Common, and the furthest is over at the Bunker Hill Monument. Now, if you look to your left, you'll see the Bunker Hill Monument as we make this turn. It's a tall gray obelisk. Looks like a smaller version of the Washington Monument in D.C. Now, with the Bunker Hill Monument, if anyone wants to climb it, it's open every day except Tuesday. But if you do go, make sure that you're hydrated and you're wearing comfortable shoes, because there is no elevator. So it's 221 feet to the top and 294 stairs.
294 steps.
You got it. So just be prepared. A little bit of a hike. And on really warm days, they'll actually close it for people's health. Now, right up ahead of us on your right, you're going to see the oldest commissioned warship still afloat in the world. This is the USS Constitution, built in 1797 right here in Boston, across the harbor, over in the North End, where the Coast Guard station is today. Now, in order to be a commissioned warship, you must travel at least 1 nautical mile per year. The Constitution does that on every 4th of July. It gets towed a half a mile into the harbor, fires a 21-gun salute, turns around, and they tow it back. And right now they have an annual raffle, so you can actually win 2 spots to go on it this upcoming 4th of July when it does its turnaround. Alright, now here we are pulling into our next stop, and this is going to be stop number 3 here at the Charlestown Navy Yard. This is going to be a stop to get off if you'd like to visit the USS Constitution, the Bunker Hill Monument, Constitution Museum, Bunker Hill Museum, or also at the Navy Yard, you're going to find the Castle Young, which is a Cold War era naval vessel. All right, well, don't see anyone joining us, so let me just shoot a quick note. Joining us, we're going to head off here, leaving stop number 3 down here at the Navy Yard. Now, back in 1997, for the first time in 116 years, the Constitution traveled under its own power. It went 13 miles up the coastline to Marblehead, which is right beyond Salem. It did a 21-gun salute, turned around, and then it was towed back to Boston. Now, the Constitution is known by its nickname, Old Ironsides, and it got that nickname during the War of 1812. It was doing battle with the HMS Guerriere off the coast of Nova Scotia near George's Bank. And one of the sailors on board the Guerriere yelled, "Huzzah! Her sides must be made of iron." And that's because cannonballs were just bouncing off the side of the hull.
Wow.
But in reality, the hull of the Constitution isn't made of iron, but 17 to 21 inch thick, live Georgian oak, sheathed in copper from Paul Revere's copper mill. And Paul Revere actually had the first copper mill in the country. Now, during its naval career, the Constitution was in 33 naval entanglements and never once did it lose a fight. Now over on your right here, as we make the turn, you're going to see the Bunker Hill Monument once again up ahead of us on your right. Now, other than over there on your right, does anyone know where the Bunker Hill Monument is actually located? It's on Breed's Hill. So you'd think it would be on Bunker Hill, but the Bunker Hill Monument is on Breed's Hill. As a matter of fact, the Battle of Bunker Hill also took place on Breed's Hill. Now, the reason for this is that the Redcoats were planning on doing battle at Bunker Hill, which is about a mile beyond Breed. But at the last minute, military strategists, the colonial troops, decided that it would be much better to fortify Breed's Hill because of the natural topography of the hill. So they spent the night digging trenches and getting ready to do battle with the Redcoats. Now the Redcoats were surprised the next day on June 17, 1775, when they showed up and found that the Redcoats were over on Breed's Hill. They were expected to go all the way over to Bunker. And so they were shocked by that. And the other thing is that Breed's Hill was actually close enough to Boston that the Redcoats had cannons all lined up in the north end, and they were able to actually hit that hill with cannon fire. So the battle occurred June 17, 1775. It's also my in-laws' anniversary, but they got married a few years after that. And it wound up that that battle, what it's most known for, is the famous saying, "Don't fire until you see the whites of their eyes." And that was said by Colonel Prescott, one of their leaders. And they basically told the men this because they were running low on ammunition. So they wanted to make sure that your shots counted. So wait until you're close. And secondly, the other thing they told them was, aim for officers. Try to create pandemonium. And that's what they did. So it took until the third attempt before the Redcoats were able to capture the hill. And the only reason they captured the hill is that the colonial troops had to finally retreat because they ran out of ammo. Now, even though the Redcoats got the hill, it was considered a moral victory for the colonial troops because they had just fought the most powerful army in the world at that time. They withstood shot for shot, 3 attempts at the hill, and they only had to retreat when they lost all their ammo, when they ran out. Now, there were over 1,000 Redcoats killed or injured in the Battle of Bunker Hill, which was at Breed's Hill. And for the colonial troops, they lost between 400 to 600. So, every June 17th, here in Boston, is a city holiday called Bunker Hill Day. And if you're still in school, you actually get the day off. So, growing up, we were always out of school before then. But now, kids don't get out until like the third week of June. So they get the holiday off, and then they have to go back to school for another day or two. The other thing is on like city holidays, like Bunker Hill Day or Evacuation Day that I mentioned before, all city offices are also closed. Now every year for my in-laws, for their anniversary on June 17th, I always give them an anniversary card, and I always cross out anniversary and write Bunker Hill Day on it. They don't find it as amusing as I do, but I still do it every year. Now, this large bridge that's right in front of us, you're going to see there's a large support structure directly in front of us, and then there's going to be another one that's right over to the left. And you'll get a good glimpse of it as we make the turn in a few minutes. You're going to see all the cables going up, that support structure. So this bridge is basically paying homage to both the Bunker Hill Monument as well as the USS Constitution, with the cables looking like rigging from a ship and the top of the structure looking like the Bunker Hill Monument. Now that bridge is called the Zachem Bridge. It's named after Leonard Zachem, who was a social activist here in Boston. And he was known for bridging the gaps between different groups of people. And because of that, that's why they named the bridge after him. That was built back in the late 1990s. And when the bridge was completed, Bruce Springsteen actually came up to Boston and performed a free concert for the unveiling of the bridge.
Very
Now, right now, coming into the city, you can see there's still a decent amount of congestion, even though it stopped lessened. And this is all because apparently it was an accident this morning on the highway. So a lot of people are taking secondary roads to get here in Boston. Over here on your right, you're going to see the Grizzly Lock. Now, the Grizzly Lock here on your right, that's where on the left side, this is all the Boston Harbor. On the right-hand side, that is all the Charles River. The Charles River is what divides Boston from Cambridge. And over in Cambridge is where you're going to find MIT, Harvard, as well as the Museum of Science. Up ahead on your right in the distance is the TD Garden. That is the home of the Boston Bruins and Boston Celtics. That's also where you're going to find the New England Sports Museum. In the Trolley Trolley ticket, you can actually get a discount in that museum. That's going to be our next stop, which is stop number 4, and we'll be over there just in a few minutes. Over on your left-hand side, you have this bucket truck, but on the other side of the truck, you're going to see the backside of a skating rink, as well as an elementary school. So right where those buildings are, over there on your left, backing up to the water, that's where on January 15, 1919, the Purity Distilling Company had a large vat of molasses. It was 50 feet tall. It held 2.3 million gallons of molasses. Now, on that day, it was unseasonably warm. The day prior, they just received a new shipment of molasses. And whenever molasses would be shipped, they'd warm it up. And because of the viscosity, it was better for travel. So you now had warm molasses added to the cold molasses. It was unseasonably warm. And then on top of it, the tank was of inferior construction. Ever since the day it was built a decade prior, it always leaked. So the metal wasn't thick enough, the rivets weren't long enough. So the neighborhood kids would always go up with buckets, stick them underneath the rivets, capture all of the molasses that would leak out, and take it home for their families. So the company got sick and tired of people taking the molasses, so they painted the tank brown so you wouldn't know that it was leaking. However, on that day, all these events came together and the tank exploded, sending a 50-foot tidal wave through the north end of Boston. 2.3 million gallons of molasses. By the time it was all done, 21 people had lost their lives. 100 people had been injured. Buildings had been torn from their foundations. And the entire elevated railroad system here through the north end was ripped from its support structures. So that is the Great Boston Molasses Flood of 1919. Alright, now we're going to be getting ready to pull over here at stop number 4 momentarily here. And this is over here at the TD Garden. As I mentioned, home of the Bruins and the Celtics. There you have a good glimpse of the Jacob Bridge beside you. Hello. Welcome on. Very welcome. Thank you. Make yourself comfortable. Very welcome. Alright, going to give one other ring. Make sure no one's joining us, and then we'll head out. So for those of you joining us, welcome on. My name's Spencer, and I'm going to be your conductor for this portion of the tour. Please remain seated at all times. Please keep all body parts inside of the window. There is no smoking on board, no vaping, and no alcoholic beverages on the trolley. Now we're going to get ready here to leave stop number 4, which is down here at the TD Garden. Now, as I mentioned, on your right-hand side, set back off the road, is the TD Garden, the home of the Boston Bruins and the Boston Celtics. That's also where you're going to find the New England Sports Museum. And also over here is North Station. And North Station is where you can hop on a train to head north of Boston. So if anyone would like to visit Salem or Newburyport or any of these places along the coast, it's a good place to grab the train. Now, prior to moving into the TD Garden in September of 1995, the Bruins and Celtics both used to play over at the old Boston Garden. Now, the Boston Garden was right here on your right, where there's now a parking garage. So, immediately in front of the TD Garden, there was less than 10 inches separating the two buildings. Now, September 95, after the TD Garden opened, that's when it became obvious that it was okay to now begin destruction of the old Boston Garden. Now, with Boston Garden, opposing teams used to hate coming to Boston to play. And the reason for this was that you had the balconies would hang right over the playing surface. So it didn't matter if it was the ice for a hockey game or the parquet for a basketball game. Fans were right on top of you. Longtime coach, GM, and president of the Boston Celtics, Brett Auerbach, was also sometimes known when opponents were in town that there would be an issue with the plumbing in the other team's locker room. So sometimes they did not have hot water for showers. So anything he could do to possibly help you. Now, in 1990, the Boston Bruins had a big problem in a Stanley Cup final playoff game against the Edmonton Oilers. And the game was eventually postponed because of it. And it's something that you don't normally think about nowadays when you go indoors to an event. But that is air conditioning. The old Boston Garden didn't have it. So in 1990, the Bruins had a playoff game against the Edmonton Oilers. They wound up having to hold up the game multiple times because of fog on the ice. The temperature inside the building that night was 85 degrees. And eventually the lights went out. So the game was actually postponed. Now, as we continue on up ahead, we're going to be passing by the main entrance of the TD Garden. And the most famous Boston Bruin of all time is number 4, Bobby Orr. And if you look over here on your right side, you're going to see a statue of Bobby Orr flying through the air, scoring the goal. That is the Stanley Cup winning goal from the 1970 Stanley Cup Finals when the Bruins defeated the St. Louis Blues. Now, he was tripped by one of the Blues defensemen right after he shot the puck. And as he's flying through the air, he sees the puck slide into the net, and he knows that his team just won the Stanley Cup. And he begins to celebrate while he's flying parallel to the ice. Directly in front of us, you can see that large brick building with towers behind it. That is the west end of Boston. In the 1950s, the city of Boston decided that they wanted to take this land by eminent domain. But the problem was you had all sorts of people living there. It was a very culturally and ethnically diverse neighborhood. So they realized the only way they could take this neighborhood by eminent domain is if the neighborhood was declared a slum. They did that by not collecting trash for a couple of weeks. City inspectors came in, declared the neighborhood a slum, took it by eminent domain. Everyone was kicked out on the streets. They were told they were going to build affordable housing, but in reality they built high-price housing in government buildings. So this is one of the darker chapters in the history of Boston. But there was one family who decided that they were not going to leave the city. They were not leaving their home. They stayed in their house. And their house actually still stands to this day. It's still used as a residence. People still live in it. They no longer have a yard. There's no grass. Road goes all the way around it, but the building still stands. So when we go through this intersection, momentarily, if you look down Bamazny Way this turn, you're going to see the Hurley building, constructed in the 1960s. When they built this building, they ran out of money, and the building was never completed. There are stairways and hallways in that building leading nowhere. As a matter of fact, you see a stairway here on your right with a fence across it, but it doesn't reach its destination. Now, the reason why this building was so expensive is because if you look at the exterior walls, they look like corduroy. That was actually created using handheld jackhammers. So needless to say, very expensive, and that's why they flew for all the money. Now that's now the home of the Department of Social Services here in Massachusetts. But if you ever saw the movie The Pod with Leonardo DiCaprio, and they show the Massachusetts State Police Headquarters, they use that building as that in the movie. The building right here on your right side, this is the Edward Brook Courthouse. Now the Edward Brook Courthouse here on your right, this was named after Edward Brook, who was the first African-American Attorney General and Senator from Massachusetts. Now, between June of 1962 and January of 1964, he was the Attorney General here, while Boston was going through one of its most infamous crime sprees. Women in Boston were scared, living in fear, and they actually had a midnight curfew. And that was, it was during the reign of the Boston Strangler.
Oh, wow.
So if you're interested in learning more about the Boston Strangler, true crime, ghosts, and things that go bump in the night, check out the Ghost and Gravestone store. It goes off every night. Talk to one of the Old Town Trolley ticket reps. They can actually get you discounted tickets for that. And it's a combination of both a trolley ride as well as you get to walk through one of the historic graveyards at night. And normally they all close at dusk. So it's the one time legally you can get in there and check them out. Everything over on the right side of the trolley up for the next few blocks is going to be part of Government Center. Government Center is where you're going to find federal, state, and local government agencies all grouped together. We'll stop right here, and you get a good glimpse of the Boston Public Market, which is right over here on your left side, right on the other side of the lights here. Now, the public market, that's where you're going to find all sorts of locally sourced food as well as goods. So if anyone's looking for something made in Boston, that's a good place to go. Now, right up beyond the Boston Public Market, you're going to see 6 glass towers that are over here on the left, right up ahead of the trolley. Now, those 6 glass towers, that is the New England Holocaust Memorial. Now, there are 6 glass towers there. Each one commemorates one of the 6 major concentration camps during the Holocaust. And each of the towers are engraved with numbers, one for every person who lost their life during the Holocaust. And there's actually a Holocaust museum that's being worked on right now in Boston that's going to be opening this upcoming fall. Now, as we get ready to go through this intersection here just momentarily, right behind those 6 glass towers that we're going to be passing, you're going to find the Blackstone Block, and that is the oldest commercial block in the city of Boston.
That's old.
Exactly, dating back to the 1630s. Now, over on the Blackstone Block, and you can see that right here on your left, as we pull up to this light, you're going to find the Bell and Hand Tavern, dating back to 1795, as well as the Union Oyster House right beside, which is from 1826. Oldest continuously operated tavern and restaurant respectively in the country. Now, if you go into the Union Oyster House, you'll actually find a booth with a plaque for JFK, and that's because that's where he used to eat lunch every day that he was in Boston. Here on your right, you're going to see the Boston City Hall, as well as the playground. The playground you may have seen before, because a couple years ago it was a viral sensation when a Boston police officer slid down it. So that was the slide over there. Over here on your left, you're going to see Faneuil Hall, this large brick building with the cupola up on top. Built in 1742 by Peter Faneuil. given to the people of Boston to forever use as a public meeting space. It's still used for public meetings to this day. And as a matter of fact, on the second floor, that's where the Sons of Liberty would have had most of their meetings. Right in front, you're going to see a statue of Sam Adams with his arms crossed. And to the right of Sam Adams is the Sam Adams Tap Room. If anyone's interested in Sam Adams beer, you can get things there on tap that otherwise you cannot get anywhere else. Now, right behind Faneuil Hall is Quincy Market. And we'll get a better glimpse of that now as we pull through this light. But if you look over there, Quincy Market is a 550-foot long granite building. And in there you're going to find a few hundred eateries and shops. And you can get there from our next stop, number 5, right here around the corner, or as well from number 1. And stop number 1 is only about a 2-minute walk right across the street. This large brick building on your right, built in 1713, oldest public building still standing in the city. That is the old State House. You can see a lion and a unicorn up on top. There's a balcony there at the back. It was from that balcony on July 17, 1776. The Declaration of Independence was read for the first time to the people of Boston. And also from that balcony, President Gerald Ford stood on the bicentennial with Queen Elizabeth of England by his side, and the Queen read the Declaration for the people of Boston. On your left, you're going to see a circle of cobblestones on the ground beneath the balcony, and that's where on March 5th, 1770, the Boston Massacre occurred. Now, we're going to talk a lot more about that momentarily after we leave our next stop, which is stop number 5, right here at the old State House. All right, welcome on. Thank you. Just watch yourself. Watch your step there as you go up. Bless you. Bless you. All right. Well, for those of you just hopping on, welcome. My name's Spencer, and I'm going to be your conductor for this portion of your tour. Please remain seated while the trolley's in motion. Please keep all body parts inside of the windows. No smoking, vaping, or drinking alcohol on board. Now, as I mentioned, that is the old State House right beside us here on your left. And there is an exhibit going on right now at the old State House that you can see there, as well as it's also part of it at the Old South Meeting House. One ticket gets you into both of them. So if anyone's interested in checking that out, it's called Revolutionary Spaces, and it's being done this year for the 250th anniversary. Now, as I mentioned, right behind the old State House, when we were pulling in, you saw that circle of cobblestones on the ground. And that's where on March 5th, 1770, the Boston Massacre took place. Now, what happened was, you had a few hundred Bostonians that were gathered there. They were not happy. They circled a handful of redcoats, and they were hurling insults. They were hurling snowballs. And the reason that they were all there and so upset was for a variety of reasons, including different acts that had been being passed over in England, different taxes that would be assessed on their goods, as well as a week prior, a young boy was shot and killed by a loyalist of the crown here in Boston. So everyone was not happy. Temperatures were high, and then in the distance you heard. Now at the time, if you were a church bell, that meant there was potentially a fire. So someone yelled fire, shots rang out, and 5 Bostonians were killed, including Crispus Attucks, who was a free black man. And he was the first person to lose his life in the fight for American independence. And if you ever see a color image of the Boston Massacre, that's actually taken from an engraving done by Paul Revere. Over here on your right, you can see that big teapot. If you look beyond the teapot, you're going to see Boston City Hall. Boston City Hall has been consistently voted one of the 10 ugliest buildings in the United States. So Boston's known for having some great architecture. That building is not one of them. Now, the mayor of Boston is Michelle Wu, and she is the first woman elected mayor of Boston. Over here on your left, you're going to see the King's Chapel burying ground, the oldest burying ground in Boston. You see the small obelisk in the middle? That's for William Dawes, who rode that night with Paul Revere. Also buried in there, you're going to find John Winthrop, who is the first governor of Massachusetts Bay. The church is right beside it on the left. This is the King's Chapel. King's Chapel opened in 1686 as the first Anglican church in Boston. And that stone church was built on the same place in the 1740s. Next to you on your left, you'll find the Harvey Parker House, opened in 1855 by Harvey Parker. Hotel is well known for many reasons, including their food. If you look to the right of the front door, I know right now it's behind the mail truck, but you're going to see a large photo of a Boston cream pie. They're credited with being the inventor of Boston cream pie. So if anyone wants one while you're in Boston, it's a good place to do so. They also coined the term scrod. So if you ever see scrod on a menu, it's not a new type of fish, but it's just the fresh catch of the day. And it's normally a white fish, so it's normally either cod or haddock. Now you're going to see over here on your right, part of Suffolk University. And there's going to be a little more of Suffolk up ahead of us on your left. You're going to find over 70 colleges and universities in the Boston area. Now this burying ground is right up ahead of us on your right. This is the granary. Now the granary is kind of like the who's who burying ground here in Boston. So inside here, you're going to find Sam Adams. So Sam Adams is actually going to be this large rock that you're going to see right on your right as soon as we get up next to this burying ground, just here momentarily. Also buried in here, you're going to find Paul Revere, John Hancock, the 5 victims of the Boston Massacre. There's a large obelisk in the middle, and it says Franklin on it, and that's actually for Ben Franklin's parents, because Ben Franklin was born in Boston, and he moved to Philadelphia when he was a teen. So his parents are buried in there. Also buried in there is Mother Goose. On your left, you can see the Beantown pub with all the scaffolding around it. So there's Sam Adams right on your front right there. And once again, if you see this red stripe on the sidewalk, anywhere in Boston, whether it be painted or a red stripe made of brick, that just means that it's part of the Freedom Trail, which is a 2.5-mile free walking tour of the city of Boston. It goes to 16 different historic sites, all with connections to the American Revolution. Now, as I mentioned, the Beantown Pub on your left, one of the places in Boston where you can go get Boston baked beans if you want some. But a few years ago, they ran an ad on the radio telling people that they should go there to get something to eat or something to drink, because they were the only place in Boston where you could go and have a cold Sam Adams overlooking the cold Sam Adams. So that was their ad. So a few hundred years have passed, so I guess enough time has gone by. On your right is the Park Street Church. It was on the front stairs of that church that the song America, My Country 'Tis of Thee, was first performed by a local children's choir. Here on your left, you're going to find the Boston Common. The Boston Common dates back to 1634, and it is the oldest public park in the United States. And we'll be seeing that from a couple other sides as we drive around today. Directly in front of us, you're going to see the new State House, built in 1798. It may be the new State House here in Boston, but it's the oldest State House still in use in the country. The dome is wooden shingles, sheathed over in copper from Paul Revere's copper mill, and it's been gilded throughout history, except during World War II, when it was painted gray to avoid enemy aircraft detection. You'll see statues in front of everyone from Anne Hutchinson to Mary Dyer, Daniel Webster, Major General Joseph Hooker, and right up over here on your right, you're going to see John F. Kennedy. Now, if anyone's interested, we're going to loop around in a few minutes. It's stop number 8. It's going to be right across from the State House. And if anyone's interested, they do offer tours of it daily. I know it's a new State House, but it's still almost 230 years old. Now, down on your right here, this is Joy Street. If you go down to the end of Joy Street, that's where you're going to find the African American Meeting House, as well as the Black Heritage Trail, which is a walking tour that goes through this neighborhood. Now, this neighborhood is called Beacon Hill. Now, while you're in Boston, if you hear anyone say Beacon Hill, it could mean one of three things. They could be talking about this type of architecture. They could be talking about this neighborhood, which is one of the more affluent neighborhoods in the city. Or they could be talking about the state legislature. So at the new State House, besides having the State House of Representatives and State Senate, you also have the governor. And the governor of Massachusetts is currently Maura Healey, and she is the first woman-elected governor in the history of the state. Now, as we work our way down Beacon Hill here, we're going to be going over towards our next stop, and that's going to be stop number 6 over at the Bull and Finch Tavern, better known as Cheers. Now, in the early 1980s, you had TV executives that wanted to start a new sitcom based around the local watering hole, a place where people could go and they could discuss hot topic issues like politics and sports. So they figured, hey, what better place than Boston? So they came up to Boston, checked out about a dozen different bars, and finally chose the Bull and Finch to be the setting of that top-rated show for the next 12 years. Now, if anyone wants to go, just so you know, when you walk down the stairs, and we have a little branch here on top. If anyone goes, when you walk down the stairs and grab the handle to walk in, it all looks exactly like it did from the TV show. But as soon as you open the door and actually get inside, it looks completely different. And that's because on the TV show, it was filmed, all the interior shots were filmed entirely on a soundstage out in California. But the exteriors were filmed here in Boston, and they have since added a replica bar on the second floor of the building. All right, and here we are. You're right beside stop number 6, which is over here at Cheers.
6.
This is stop number 6 right here at Cheers. All right, we're going to give it a second, see if anyone's joining us, and then we'll head right around the corner to the next stop, which is stop number 7. Alright, no one's joining us, so we're going to head off here, leaving stop number 6 over at the Bull and Finch. Now our next stop is going to be stop number 7. That's going to be at the Welcome Center, and that's going to be the place to hop off if you'd like to jump on the Back Bay Tour. And the next Back Bay Tour is going to be leaving at 10:15. Now, right beside you on your left, you're going to see the Boston Public Garden. Now, the garden dates back to 1837, and it is the oldest public botanical park in the United States. You're going to find over 50 varieties of trees up there. There's over 1,000 trees in total. And you can see a body of water out in the middle. That's the lagoon. And it's out there on the lagoon that you can go and ride the swan boats. For $4.75, the swan boats are one of the better bargains in the city of Boston. Now, they've been operated there every year since 1877 by the Paget family. And just last month, they came back down to Boston after their winter hibernation up in New Hampshire. And they're pedal powered, but just so you know, since you're on vacation, you're not doing the pedaling. Someone's going to be doing it for you. So you just get to relax on the swan boats and ride around the lagoon. Now, between April and September, you come into Boston any weekend, you're going to see anywhere from a dozen to 2 dozen brides and grooms running around the public garden getting their wedding photos taken. So if you took a poll of Bostonians, probably about 10% of them had their pictures done in there. And also, it's not unusual to see actual wedding ceremonies going on as well. Now, the big difference between the Boston Public Garden and the Boston Common is that the Boston Public Garden, there are signs at all the entrances saying no ball playing, no bikes, no roller skates. Basically, it's a place to be quiet, relax, and enjoy the tranquility in the middle of the busy city. Whereas the Boston Common, that's where they have baseball fields, softball fields, the merry-go-rounds, food vendors, and that's where everyone goes to be loud and run around. Here on your right, you're going to see Commonwealth Ave. Up the middle is the Commonwealth Mall. That's strip of grass. Winston Churchill actually said it's the prettiest street in the world. On your left, you're going to see George Washington on horseback right inside the public garden. Now, whenever you see a statue of someone on horseback, if one hoof is in the air, it means that the rider was injured in battle. If two hoofs are in the air, it means that the rider was killed in battle. And if three hoofs are in the air, it means it was a very talented horse. But as you can see with that horse with the front hoof in the air, it's actually a historical inaccuracy because Washington was never injured in battle in his life. But they thought it made for a better looking statue, so that's why the hoof is in the air. Here on your right is Newbury Street, which is Boston's version of Fifth Avenue or Rodeo Drive. Up there you're going to find a few hundred stores, boutiques, and cafes. Now, if anyone ever saw Good Will Hunting, and there was a scene with Matt Damon and Robin Williams sitting at a park bench near the water, that's filmed in one of the benches out here in a public garden. And you can actually walk out there and you can look for the bench. It's actually carved on it that it was the bench used in the movie. And there's actually a movement right now to have a Robin Williams statue sculpted out there in a public garden. And it'll be something that people can go over and hug and sit with if they're having a bad day. And just as a reminder that they're not alone. Up ahead of us here on your right, you're going to see the Saunders Castle. Now the Saunders Castle right now has a king tut exhibit going on. So you go in there and there's always different changing exhibits in that building. Right beside you on your left, you're going to find Statler Park with these ropes going around it for the grass. They're having a new memorial unveiled on this park this upcoming fall, and that's going to be for the Coconut Grove. Now, the Coconut Grove was the most popular nightclub here in Boston. And back on November 28, 1942, you had over 1,000 people celebrating the weekend at the Grove. Its capacity was 500. The Grove used to stand over here on your right, where the Revere Hotel is today. Well, a fire broke out in the lower level in the Melody Lounge. By the time the fire was put out, 492 people had lost their lives. It was the second worst fire in the history of the United States with regards to loss of life. Now, the majority of the people who were killed in the fire, none of them showed any signs of having been in a fire. They were actually crushed to death trying to get out. And because of that fire, it changed the fire codes in the United States as you know them today. Because now whenever you have a public building with a revolving door, next to it always has to be doors that open outwards onto the street. There always have to be emergency exits. And beside emergency exits, there need to be signs telling people where they can escape and get out of the building. Now over at the Coconut Grove, the only way out were revolving doors. Doors that open inwards, and doors that were covered by palm trees, which they used as decorations. Well, here we are at stop number 7, and this is going to be the stop to get off at if you would like to check out the Back Bay tour. Now, if you want to hop on the Back Bay tour, the Back Bay is going to be picking up right across the street from us here on your left. So if you cross right here in front of the trolley, go right behind this brick building, right beyond the blue lights, and it's going to be right there. You got it. You're very welcome.
All right, welcome aboard, everybody. My name is Ms. Beantown. I'm going to be your tour conductor for this portion of the tour. I have some safety announcements for you, so please pay attention to these. while I contact dispatch.
Good evening. I'm delighted you could participate in our excursion. To avoid possible mayhem, please pay attention. Standing may cause vertigo. Don't do it. Keep your arms and legs inside so you don't fall out the window, especially the rear window. And finally, smoking and alcoholic beverages are strictly for the birds.
If you look over to the left, we have the Boston Public Garden, the oldest botanical garden in the United States, founded in 1837, with 1,500 trees and 80 different species from around the world. If you notice on the trunks and the branches of the trees, there's emblems that are attached to them, plaques, and that tells you what kind of tree it is. Also, look at the body of water in there. That is the Swan Pond, where you can get a swan boat ride that's man-pedaled from mid-April to Labor Day weekend. Goes once around the public garden, and it's $4.75 per person. It's been owned by the same family since the 19th century, handed down from generation to generation. Also located in the public garden is a family of bronze ducklings, situated in front of some benches up ahead on the left. Can't see them right now, but there's usually a lot of people sitting on the benches, kids sitting on the ducklings. So I don't know if you can see them yet. The front left, front of the benches, you see some ducklings, bronze ducklings over there. This man, and it looks like sitting on the bench there. So that is from Robert Nikolowski's book, Make Way for Ducklings. It's a children's story about Mrs. Mallard searching for a new home for her ducklings. Check it, quick, away, picking back. Your turn. Go. So our next stop is stop number 8. What can you see and do here? Well, we have downtown crossing over here. It's over there. And you can go shopping there. We have a Macy's there. Stop number 8 also has the red line that takes you to Harvard, popular destination for tourists, where you can go to the museums there and the art gallery. It really smells over here, doesn't it?
It does.
It smells bad. Smells like sewer.
Yeah. They're cleaning out the porta potty right there.
Oh, are they?
Yeah.
They're cleaning up the porta potty, that's why. Yeah. It wasn't me, okay? It wasn't me. Can you all see the ducklings now? Yeah, okay. Look at kids playing around them. There's only 2 sets of these in the world. The other one's in Russia. The First Lady Barbara Bush gave Mrs. Gorbachev a set of them. But they're not allowed to put them anywhere else because the artist of these said this is indigenous to Boston. The story was about Boston. In fact, Robert McCloskey was a college student when he saw a police officer directing ducklings across the street. That's what gave him the idea to write the book. That's why it says make way for ducklings. And every year on Mother's Day, they have a parade here with little children dressed as ducklings. Thank you. Now also, it's stop number 8, is where you can start the Freedom Trail tour. The red line in your map. It's a 2.5-mile long tour throughout the city of Boston where you can see the historical sites by foot. So it begins at the new State House at the top of the hill, ends at Bunker Hill Monument, and stop number 3. And it's also where you can see the Black Heritage Trail. And that trail takes you throughout Beacon Hill. And it takes you through the Underground Railroad, which literally is not a railroad, nor is it underground. But it's a series of houses and buildings which allowed runaway slaves to escape to the north into Canada. Some of them would make their homes here. I don't know if we're going to make this next lane. No, I don't know. See, it's all backed up right there? I'm running out of things to talk about here. Talking about things and give you information that's not even in the script.
What about over here? There's that monument with all the flowers in front of it.
Well, it's not flowers. Those are actually flags.
Oh, flags.
But for Memorial Day weekend.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah. All right, next light. We will make the next light.
Okay.
To my front right, the red brick building there, with the black shutters.
Yes.
On the third floor, the fourth and fifth windows. You see purple windows there. You see them?
Yes.
That was an accident. The glassmaker added too much manganese oxide while making the glass for the windows. Yeah, when the windows were installed, they were actually clear. It wasn't until the sun, over time, shined through them and eventually stained them purple. And this is an aristocratic neighborhood. So these people were very upset for the money that they paid to have that happen. But then we convinced them, no, you are the only people that have them. It makes you special. And then they started bragging about it. It worked. Yeah. All right. We can go. These people want to go too. Watch, it's going to turn red, right when I'm right in the middle of both crosswalks. I was just going to ask if you wanted to drive.
No, thank you. You're doing a great job.
Sometimes I don't want to drive.
I don't like
when I'm home and I'm going out with my kids or friends, I always make them the driver. And I said, no, you drive. I hate driving. They said, you drive in Boston? I said, yeah, but you get paid for it's different. We actually have the right of way because we're caught between the red lights here. All right, nobody else is in there. Do you want to go? No? All right. And be careful over here. Yeah, see it's all flags over there? Yes. And the only time I'm kind of forced to drive when I go out with my friends is if we're in Boston because nobody knows their way around. And even a GPS doesn't know its way around.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Did you experience that already?
Yes.
Yes. They don't know, they get lost, there's too many one-ways. And so they know that and they say, okay, I'm not going to deal with the GPS because I know better and tell me where I want to go. And one said, no, it's always going to reach right with me. I said, no, it won't. Trust me, it won't do that. Because when there was COVID and this is not essential, I decided to work for DoorDash, right? And I used the GPS because I don't know where people live, right? And I noticed that where it was taking me, I said, why is it taking me in this direction? You see that? And I'm saying, that's not a good way to go. So I'd say, no, I'm going here instead, and I'd cut like 4, 5, 6 minutes off the thing. By the way, when I worked for DoorDash back then during COVID, remember when they closed all the restaurants, people had to eat outside and stuff like that? Or people were ordering at home and delivering at home? I was making bank. I picked up a catering thing, picked it up for Chipotle, made the delivery around the block, 15 minutes. 15 minutes, I made $169 in change.
Wow.
That day, my average was $52 an hour with pay and tips. Can you believe that? And as time went on and they started opening it up, pay started dwindling. It became $36 an hour, $24 until it was like between 12 and 18 an hour. I said, I'm done. I'm done. So, and I'll tell you another thing that happens. Okay? Pizza Hut is guilty for this. I picked up an order at Pizza Hut. I have nothing more to talk about. I'm just carrying a conversation. All right, so I pick up an order at Pizza Hut. I asked for the receipts. They said, we don't give the receipts. Okay, and then they find something in there. I said, I can't deliver the pizza without a receipt. They want a receipt. The reason why I was asking was because I had a suspicion, because the tips were really low when you're not, they weren't even non-existent. And so, anyway, I said, they won't give me the receipt. I text the person. I usually ask the receipt, for you, to give it to you. And then the guy tells me, I put in a tip. I got no tip. The reason why they keep the receipt for the Uber Eats and DoorDash drivers is Pizza Hut is keeping the tips. If you're ordering from the restaurant, they don't have their own drivers, they keep the tips and don't give it to the driver. So now, you know what I do to Pizza Hut? I never tip Pizza Hut. I never tip them. And someone asked me once, why didn't you tip them? I said, because they stole my tips when I worked for Dow DoorDash. I will never tip them again. So yeah, that's the thing. It's not just them. It's other people. You gotta make sure that, was the order placed through DoorDash, or did you order it through the restaurant itself? If you ordered it from the restaurant itself and DoorDash delivers it, they probably kept the tip. So, and DoorDash drivers don't like taking orders that said, I'll give you a cash tip, because lots of times people say that so they don't get tipped at all. So that's another thing that, it gets really hard. So it's like a no-win situation. I guess the idea is just do $1 or $2 and say, look, I only tipped $1. Let the driver know what you tipped. I kept it low, but I'll give you more cash when you deliver it. That's probably the best way around it, if you're dealing with them. All right, now we can see this. Now I can talk about something else that's more instead of stupid stories like DoorDash. All right, over here, see the cement area right there? That is the frog pond. We got its name because at one time this was a marshy area. It was full of frogs everywhere. And today that cement area is a waiting pool in summertime. And for all you Floridians, Californians, people from the warm climate, in the wintertime, you know what they do? They put these barriers all around it, and then they fill it with water. It gets so cold, it gets solid. We call it ice. All you warm climate people here, you don't get snow. Then we put these boots on our feet. We have blades underneath, we slide all over the place. It's called ice skating. Canada knows all about that, by the way. Their children are born with ice skates in their feet. That's painful to give birth there,
How much snow do you guys get here usually?
Well, it's not too bad, but this last winter it was horrible. Oh my gosh, it always kept dumping like 2 feet every day or every other day. And we'd shovel it 2 feet, or some one time it was 3 feet and 4. We had 6 people that took 2 hours to shovel my driveway. I have a long driveway too, though. So.
Yeah, this is a bad
That took us forever to get through here. I'm gonna let dispatch know that after 7 it's molasses.
That's all I'm worried about.
Hey dispatch, just to let you know, between 6 and 7 and 8, it's been molasses, but it is cleared up. The box truck isn't here anymore. It's just the construction at the bottom end. So I have to let dispatch know what's going on because they're not driving, the drivers drive. And we have to let them know because a lot of us call, they sometimes have to close the street because the tour takes too long. We end up being late. It could be 2.5 hours or something, but it's not at that point. the stop is right where that box truck is that's open, but that's gonna block the way, so this is the safest place. Just remember, see the sign, it's really in that vicinity ahead of us, but remember the arrows going forward and back. Sometimes we have to go part further back or forward when things like this happen, okay? All right, stop number 8. Anybody disembarking here?
Yes.
Next to the, behind the tree is Granary Cemetery, the new State House. They have tours here Monday through Friday. The sail off, that's at stop number 1. That's awesome.
No, we're doing the lobster.
The lobster roll, that's in here. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
There's a place called the Lobster Roll down in Ireland
Okay.
by Water Street, but I would think that stop 5 is closer to that. So you can get it from there too, but.
Okay.
But you would have to go back to stop 1, yeah. So, you're welcome. So also, remember remain seated, no standing, keep everything completely inside at all times, no smoking or drinking of alcoholic beverages aboard the trolley because this is an aerated tour. Remember, keep all conversations to a whisper, silence on cell phones, and thank you. Oh. Oh, la parada es 6, esta es 8. So, pueden caminar atrás, a la izquierda, ya, allá, okay, okay. Es aproximadamente 5 o 10 minutos. All right. Yeah, por día. All right, they needed a back pay. They said they spoke English though. Don't you remember them saying they spoke English, these people? They weren't listening. Yeah, they weren't listening. So then I said it. No, she's going that way when I pointed that way. I don't know. I said it in Spanish too.
Yeah.
All right, my Spanish isn't that good, so, I mean, I get by. I have the kind of Spanish that I'm not really considered fluent, but I know enough to get by if I need to. I can figure out what to say. And they're pretty good guessers. Yeah, so this is the new State House here. And the gold dome was originally whitewashed wooden shingle, but and it leaked often, so they repaired it with a copper from Paul Revere's copper mill. It was gilded in 1861. Remained gold ever since, with the exception of World War II, when we painted it gray, so it wouldn't be recognized by our enemy. If you want to take the tour, don't use the front entrance. They want you to use the hooker entrance. Yeah. Behind that tree, there's a man sitting on a horse, a statue. That's General Hooker. Get your mind down about it. All right, over between the trees, hard to see. Because the buses, like that, there's a monument there. It's a 50-foot bridge, that's all black bridge, the front of the Civil War, from Massachusetts. Some of the senators, caught these two black men, they turned into slaves, and they executed their leader, who was Robert E. Shaw. Some of the story about that. Those men. Y'all see that? Y'all see the movie? No? It's out a few years ago. It's pretty good. True story. Now, we need to stay. I'm in this lane because the bus is there, but we need the right lane. But notice we have the vehicles in front of us with hazards on. I need to figure out if I can actually drive around them, because there's a double one in front of the box truck with its hazards on. Oh, it moved. That's good. Okay. All right, if you look to the left over here, there's a statue of a woman sitting on a bench. Y'all see that? Yeah, that's me texting in church. It's very tight. I'm going to go through this. Here's what I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. To make sure I have enough room on this side, I'm going to purposely get one of those cones. It might tip over something, or go slightly over the curve. Doesn't look like I need to do that. We're good. We're good. Woo! hung. It's not because of Puritans, you have freedom of religion. It's because of Mary Dyer. Now for all you Harry Potter fans, 9 3/4 of the train station takes you to Hogwarts. Over to my right is 10.5 Beacon Street. Takes you to the Boston Athenaeum. It's a library, museum, and cultural center. And where you'll find a book that's bound in human skin. If you want to learn more about the creepy side of the story, take our ghosted gravestones in the evening. Tonight, 6, 7, 8, and 9 o'clock. It is trolley tour. There is lots of walking. You do get a $10 discount if you want to do that tonight. Talk to one of our salespeople. Even though it's a trolley tour, there is lots of walking. And we also have a night walk. It is called a night walk. So you can ask about that as well. Now over here to the right of the lights, Parker House Hotel again. Last hurrah. That's where John F. Kennedy's grandfather, John F. Fitzgerald, used to sit. His grandfather's nickname was Honey Fitz because they said his voice sounded as sweet as honey. That's also when he proposed to Jacqueline Bouvier. You know Jacqueline Kennedy? Yes, her. And I'll tell you a story about my mom. Yes, you see, several years ago when I was in elementary school, when I was in elementary school, my mom moved to Florida. We moved back and forth between Florida and Massachusetts. One year, my mother was between jobs. So she took a summertime job for Barry's Clinton Pub. Yes, royalty. She had a house in Florida. And they hired her, but she had no experience. She had to go to special school for that. Resume, experience. She had none of that. You know why they told her they hired her? Because she looked like Jacqueline Kennedy. That's what she said. That's what they told her. So where's her experience? She was a draftsman for Raytheon. You know where they make missiles and bombs? That's what she did. She's 88 today. She was the only one that did that. Now this here is School Street. And the Latin school used to be located here. No longer located here. It still exists. It's near Harvard. And it was founded by the Puritans who believed that education was of the utmost importance. That every man, woman, and child should know how to read and write. In fact, Massachusetts is ranked #1 for education from kindergarten to 12th grade. To graduate high school, you have to have 4 years of English, 4 years of social science, and know your constitution, 4 years of science, 4 years of math to be most students into calculus, and 4 years, I was told 2 years of a foreign language, right? 4 years of physical education. My daughter corrected me yesterday. She said, no, Mom, it's 4 years of physical foreign language. Yes, 4 years. And I did not learn my Spanish in school. I took 4 years of French. It's my, yeah, so anyway.
Can you still speak French?
My Spanish is better. So, anyway, over there to the right, a red brick building is the old South Meeting House. If you want to see these, I thought the lobster one was over here. I thought it was over here somewhere. Maybe Luke's lobster, I don't know. Don't know. Okay. So we're asking about Luke's lobster. I said stop 5, but let's find out in stop 1 so we can know for sure, because I don't know. It's not on industry. And the protest of the taxing team have a recording of Samuel Adams from the 1700s. Well, the Sons of Liberty heard those words. They knew that was their signal to leave the meeting. And then they disguised themselves as Mohawk Indians. They ran down the river's wharf. They broke up the chains of the locks of 3 ships, the Beaver, the Dartmouth, and the Illinois. And then they dumped the tea into the harbor. The very next day, a young man by the name of John Robinson found one of the tea chests washed along the shorelines. Drags it home. Stays in his family for around 250 years. We now have that tea chest at our Boston Tea Party Ships Museum, our sister company. We're owned by the same company. Which happens to be at the next stop, stop number 9. We which also the Seaport Shuttle stops at. It's the only stop in the city tour where the city tour has a stop in the Seaport District. Now, if you do want to take the Seaport Shuttle, that stops at 9. Just remember, it is not a tour, it's just a shuttle. But there are things you can see there. Stop 15 has a lawn on D Street, a park designed for adults to enjoy. Stop 16 has a lot of restaurants there on the harbor. We also have the Harpoon Brewery for tours and beer tasting, choosing from out of 5. And we have 4 museums in the Seaport District. And one is at stop 16, that's the Institute of Contemporary Art. The other 3 are the next stop number 9. Now look over here to my right, tall building, silver building, with the louvers over the windows. That's 2012 of Federal Reserve Banks. One is located there in Boston. And that aluminum skin is one of the first aluminum skin. What that does is it keeps the building cool. And the louvers create a nice downward draft, make it nice and cool to walk around. Now, I don't know what they were thinking. We're in New England. The only time that made sense was a couple of days ago. And they do have tours there Monday through Friday. And who knows, maybe they hand out some free samples. Now the first museum that you will see will be the Boston Tea Party Ships Museum. It is a live reenactment with audience participation. So they're going to give you a card with a name and an image on it, and that's your character. They'll stomp your feet. You're going to run up to those ships, and then you're going to dump tea into the harbor. And when you're done dumping tea into the harbor, you can go to the Abigail Tea Room and drink some tea from the 1700s again. And I hope it's not from the harbor. It's $5. Now you can drink 5 flavors, mild to strong. Strong one has a smoky flavor to it because the tea leaves have been smoked over charcoal. That's some co-worker places there. They're not waving back. Okay.
She did.
Okay. And then Boston Children's Museum, all kinds of fun for kids. They got all kinds of gadgets for kids to figure out how things work. Puzzles, bubble room to blow bubbles. Playground, rock climbing wall. I was there 3 years ago. I had so much fun. I went by myself. They even gave me a special necklace that they asked for when I was leaving. Apparently, that was to let everybody know I had no children with me. After the set of lights on the left where that red EMT truck is, here's the Boston Firehouse Museum, run by retired firemen known as the Sparks. And they're open on Saturdays for tours, and guess what? This person here is not supposed to park it. The one in front, not so bad, kind of out of the way. So guess what? Okay, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to sit right there. Okay. So, stop number